Hey mamas, I'm Brooke Miller, registered dietitian, certified lactation counselor, and a mama who has helped hundreds of moms feel like themselves again after baby, boost their energy, mood, metabolism, and even milk supply. Inside of the Postpartum Shift podcast, you'll learn how to take care of your health so that you can show up best for the ones you care about most. Each week, we'll tackle topics like nutrition, exercise, breastfeeding, mental health, and so much more. Plus, you'll get access to guest experts who will share ways to make your pregnancy and postpartum experience easier. Whether you're approaching the postpartum period or you're right in the thick of it, you're in the right place. Let's dive into today's topic. Hello.
Hello.
All right, welcome to the podcast. And today I have a special guest, Andrea, and we are going to be talking about so many different aspects of postpartum mental health. So we're going to be covering things like birth trauma, postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, all the things that so many moms are struggling with postpartum. And a lot of moms, aren't necessarily getting the support that they need, or they don't necessarily understand what it is they're struggling or why they're struggling. And so we hope to give you some clarity on the situation if you have experienced any of those things. So Andrea, can you just share a little bit about who you are, what you do, and how you got here?
Yeah. I'm Andrea Wettero. I live in Seattle, Washington. By education, I'm a licensed clinical social worker. But I'm also a licensed mental health counselor, a certified yoga teacher, an EMDR certified therapist, and a certified perinatal mental health therapist. So I wear a lot of hats. But I have my own private practice, and I primarily work with pregnant and postpartum people as well as parents. And I really came to this area of work after I experienced my own birth and postpartum traumas. And how I got here.
Yeah. And you can share, as much as you're comfortable with, but if you want to share a little bit about your background and kind of your birth trauma or whatever you experienced that you're comfortable sharing, just because I think I've talked to so many moms in our community recently who have gone through a lot of birth trauma, and sometimes they feel very lonely, like they are the only ones that have experienced something scary or traumatic like that. And so I think talking about this and having an open dialogue can be so beneficial for any moms who've gone through this or may go through this in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's up to 45% of people who give birth say that their birth felt traumatic.
Wow.
Right.
Okay.
And 4% of people go on to develop PTSD. And that trauma isn't just what you would think as like the physical traumas, like preeclampsia, unplanned cesarean, hemorrhages. It can also be these emotional traumas where the person did not feel heard or seen or important, or that they felt like they were powerless or helpless to their doctor. There are just so many different ways that, trauma is in the eye of the beholder. And so there's a lot of ways that a birth can come off as traumatic to somebody.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think so much on this podcast, we specifically talk about our physical health postpartum, like what can we do to heal and recover from birth? But I think a lot of us don't necessarily think about the mental health perspective and how important that is and how it impacts really our everyday living and those around us. Can you just kind of speak to the importance of taking care of yourself physically after birth, but also why the mental aspect is also just as important, if not more important?
You speak a lot about this a lot in your Instagram, on your Instagram posts and your podcasts of what can you do for your physical health, especially the nourishment piece. And I would say every session that when I meet with someone postpartum, I'm asking them, how is your sleep? How much are you eating? How much are you drinking water? What does your movement look like? And I think especially with that movement, it's like what feels appropriate for your body's ability at that time, but also feels very nourishing for their well-being. I know for like my first birth, which was a traumatic birth, and I went through a lot of things physically, I went on from that birth like as if nothing had happened, right? Like I was like walking around, I was doing all the things. And then my second birth was a planned cesarean, and I had downloaded the Expecting and Empowered app, which was so helpful because they have that cesarean recovery program, and it like really gave me perspective of like how much you have to slow down. I think like the first
Yes.
was like day one, we want you to walk 2 minutes, like sit for 5 minutes, walk for 2 minutes. And that gave me so much more perspective of like what actually is appropriate
Mm-hmm.
for allowing your body to rest and heal after such a big physical event.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and like for mental health, it's all the same things, right? Like we want to focus on the sleep, the nourishment, the hydration, the movement. But I think it's also that piece of how can we tend to um like the breath, like taking care of like doing our breath work, um, being able to get time like off as a parent,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, is there time that you can just be with yourself? And I think that those are things that are really hard to get for a lot of
Mm-hmm.
birth parents.
Yeah,
Whether,
and I think there's a lot of guilt too, for wanting to get a break, for wanting some time by yourself. Like I think the
Mhm.
expectation kind of on us as parents is from society is, you have to do it all and you're
Mhm.
kind of like the super mom if you're doing it all. And the truth is it does take support from other people to
Yes.
do a great job. And if we are burning ourselves out mentally and physically, and we are physically not our best self,
Mhm.
we're going to show up and parent that way. We're going to show up to our spouse. We're going to show up to our coworkers. Like, we're not going to show up in the way that we want for those around us. And so it's not selfish to take a break, to ask for help, to go to a therapist, to get on medications, like whatever that journey looks like for you. It's okay to ask for help. And it actually shows how strong you are. I
Yeah.
mean, even as a parent, I'm sure we could look at our kids and, as they get older, if one of my kids is struggling in school, I don't want them to pretend like they understand math or science. Like, I want them to go to the teacher and say, "Hey, I don't really understand this. Can you help me? Or can I get a tutor?" Like, that actually shows that initiative and like that bravery of like asking for help and having strength. Like, I don't want my kids to just suffer and pretend that the problem's not there and just like hope that someday it will get better on
Yeah.
its own. Like, it shows actually so much strength when we do ask for help and when other people see that. And it's almost like that bravery too of when I see other moms asking for help, then I feel like, whew, okay, they're a great mom, they're asking for help. That also like gives me that permission that I'm allowed to do that as well. So you could even be helping other people around you by asking for help.
Mhm. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I created like a free like 7 days of calm where I just kind of gave seven of the top calming activities that I recommend my clients.
Mm-hmm.
And I presented it to a few friends who you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I had asked them like, what do you think about this? And they gave me some really great feedback of like, yeah, this is all great. And when am I supposed to do this? Right. On
Mm-hmm.
top of the books I should be reading and the courses I should be taking and um all the gentle parenting or whatever kind of parenting skills I should be practicing. Like, when am I supposed to have time to take care of myself? And I just want to like name that. I want to like
Mm-hmm.
acknowledge like that's a real dynamic for people. And I think that the kind of coping skills that I recommend is just really simple and it really can be breathing. Like
Mm-hmm.
breathing is so powerful. And um in one of your recent podcasts, you would have guessed that talked about the different nervous systems.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like when we breathe in, we use our sympathetic nervous system, which is fight or flight. When we breathe
Mm-hmm.
out, we use our parasympathetic nervous system, which is rest and digest. Our bodies are meant to be in the parasympathetic nervous system, but society forces us to be in that sympathetic fight or flight.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we even just breathe, so what I ask people to do is have a longer exhale than inhale. So
Mm-hmm.
if you breathe in for 4 seconds, breathe out for 6 seconds, you're putting yourself more in that parasympathetic nervous system. And if you do that for 5, 10 minutes, you are allowing yourself to be even more so in that parasympathetic nervous system. And it allows your body to actually know it can rest for a
Mm-hmm.
moment. Um, and I think like that's just a really powerful tool that someone can do. You can do it when you're making your coffee in the morning or when you're washing the dishes or when you're in the shower. But it really is just like this way that you can reset your body to let it know it can take a moment to rest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and even something I talk to so many moms about is like, oh, I'm pumping so often, or I'm
Yeah.
breastfeeding so often, or I'm like bottle feeding so often. Like that's a big part of our day when we have a baby under 1 is feeding. And so a lot of moms will get in the habit of just like kind of, and I'm this person too, but like we'll get in the habit of scrolling on our phones while we're feeding. And that is just driving the fight or flight. Whereas, I've talked to some moms that I've worked with and I've said, hey, like, how about for a few of your nursing sessions? What if you lay down and shut your eyes and put on a meditation or just did deep breathing while nursing? It's so like, it's already relaxing. You have the oxytocin and, hormones working for you. But even when I was pumping with my first, I didn't enjoy pumping full time. It was not something I wanted to do.
For sure.
And so that's what I would do for a lot of the moments while I was pumping with him is especially the night feeds. I would keep the lights off. I would turn on a meditation. I would do deep breathing while pumping. And it made the experience just a slight bit better and less stressful. And of course, like while we're trying to produce milk, for instance, when we're in this state of stress, like that's not helpful for your body. But that's just one example of a pocket of time that all parents have in the first year is our kids are eating every few hours. That's a great pocket of time for you to either grab a snack, do some deep breathing. Like what ways can you fill up your cup while you're nourishing your baby?
100%. Like that's the concept of habit stacking, right? It's like, how can you add like one really beneficial practice to something that you're already doing in the day and just kind of making that consistent. Yeah. So if you're even doing that breathing practice every time you bottle feed or pump or nurse, it's like every few hours you're giving your body a little bit of a reset where instead of like increasing your stress load throughout the day, you're taking a little bit off, right? Every 3 hours, and just like how big of a difference that actually can make.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's like my favorite piece of advice is breathing. It is so just, underrated. It's so
free,
needed.
it's accessible. Like, yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Another one that I think of often, and this has helped my mental health so much, I'm sure yours too, but going outside and getting a walk in like the vitamin D and the fresh air, for me, that is always a tactic. Like when I feel stressed, whether it's, I got a nasty comment or somebody's threatening me or like, or maybe it's my kids are sick and screaming at the same time and they're overstimulated. Like we get all these random stressors throughout the day. And immediately when I feel myself going into that, it's like, all right, kids, we're getting thrown in the stroller. We're going for a walk around the block so mommy can breathe outside and just think, right? And that's, again, something that's free. It's accessible. Obviously we can't probably go out for a walk at midnight. It's not when we're going to want to do it. But during the day, whether you're working at the office or, and back to work, or maybe you are at home with your kids, that's something you can bring your kids with, or take a break. If you're at your desk and an email comes in at work and it frustrates you, can you go outside for 5 minutes and just do a quick lap? Or just do it, shut your eyes and do the deep breathing in your office. Those are just two things that are just so effective, so quick. And within 10 minutes, you're like, wow, I feel like a whole new person.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think another one is cold temperature. Have you heard this one?
Yes, I have not. I am such a baby. I've not done it, but yes, I've been hearing so much about it. My friends love it.
I mean, the cold temperature also activates our parasympathetic nervous system, so rest and digest. And I mean, you can do it a variety of ways. You can do a cold shower, you can do a cold plunge, whatever. But even simpler is like keeping an ice pack in your freezer. And if you're feeling really activated, taking that ice pack out, putting it on your forehead, and just allowing your body just to feel that cold and focusing on your breathing, focusing on that cold. And it can feel like a reset as well.
That's such a great one. I've seen people, one of my friends is like obsessed with this, but she will put ice water into a bowl and she'll dip her face in.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's, again, something so it's cheap or it's free. It's easy to do. You can do that at home. Your kids might wonder what you're doing if they're older, but that's just another technique these are all techniques that are available for parents of newborns, all of these techniques.
Yeah. It's at home. You can do it. I think it's just about being able to stay aware and recognize when we are getting to that point and we need to incorporate something to help bring us back down.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause yeah, like the postpartum is such an overwhelming time. We're navigating not only this new little being, but also who we are as parents. And um, yeah, and it's such a difficult and beautiful transition. So it's really important to remember just to take little moments for self-care for your body.
Mm-hmm. If you've been wanting to reach your healthiest weight and feel like yourself again postpartum without having to sacrifice your favorite foods or your milk supply, I've got a free workshop just for you. Inside of this free workshop, you'll discover how to boost energy, mood, metabolism, and even protect your milk supply. You'll learn common mistakes that moms make that actually cause exhaustion, mood swings, low milk supply, and weight loss resistance to become worse, things that moms don't even realize. And you'll learn the proven 3-step method to heal your hormones and metabolism after baby so you can go from surviving to thriving postpartum. Plus, as a free gift, you'll get my postpartum snack guide when you come hang out with us. All you have to do is click the link in the show notes to save your seat today. Spots are limited. See you there. Yeah, can you talk a little bit about that identity shift? Because I think that's something that a lot of moms struggle with is all of a sudden, before we have kids, we can do things on our own time. We can go out to eat when we want. We don't have to plan ahead necessarily. And I think there is almost this grief process that we go through when we become a parent where, hey, now it's not just all about me. Like I have somebody else to keep in mind, my whole family to keep in mind, to coordinate with, and even the dynamic of marriage and relationships and just kind of how the identity shifts when somebody goes from no kids to being a parent. Can you touch on that a little bit and how overwhelming that can be? Because I don't know about you, but like my marriage was rough the first 6 months after becoming a parent. It was rough. It was like, wait, we have to communicate? Like we have to coordinate things. And it was just, your life kind of just becomes all about that child. And you kind of have to take a step back and realize that that's not your only identity as a parent. But yeah, I'd love to hear you speak on that because I'm sure you talk about it so much.
Yeah. I mean, I think like the loss of identity was one of the biggest things that surprised me in my own postpartum. And then I see it so much in the people that I work with that, I mean, you think about like, you just become a completely different person when that baby comes into this world. And it's such a shocking shift. But then I think it's also like the loss of who you were before becoming a parent, the loss of maybe like before I was a mom, I was a workaholic, 100%. And now it's like, oh, I would rather be with my kids than work. And which is someone I never thought I was going to be. And I think it's also like, the loss of having time to yourself, the loss of being able to make choices like just for you. And also, my relationship, I resented my husband. My husband was awake at every night feeding. He changed all the diapers. He was a very hands-on father, a very supportive partner. And I still resented him so hard because he was able to do self-care so much easier than I was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like, and this is totally like biased, but I do think men just don't struggle as much as women. I mean, from what I've seen is I just think men don't think about it, which is great for them. But I do think that women have more guilt. I don't know why. Maybe it's the hormone thing. But
I mean, it's a great question. And I mean, maybe it's how we're socialized in terms of like male versus female. But like, I just remember like my husband, who's an engineer, he would say like, well, I'm going to go to the climbing gym for my self-care after being at the office today because it makes the most sense. I drive past it on the way home. And I remember thinking like, yeah, I guess that makes sense. But then that means that I'm going to be alone with our baby for like 11 to 12 hours, right? While he's gone at work and then going to the climbing gym. And I just noticed over even just like a few weeks, I started to feel like so resentful of him because it's like, okay, cool. You get to have your self-care time, but I don't get to have mine. And I kind of just said to him, I support you getting your self-care, but not at my expense.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was really about, we had to communicate and like talk about what is a plan that actually worked for the both of us. And that meant like he would go to the climbing gym on days that he worked from home and was able to
Mm-hmm.
help me through the day.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to go like on my walks during like his lunch breaks and he could be with our baby. It was just, we had to really come together and figure out what was a plan that worked for the both of us. And I think another part was, I told him like, I need you to like push me out the door to go for my walk or else I
Mm-hmm.
won't leave. So I
Yeah.
think that's part of it too, is like, I think it's harder for the birth parent, the primary caregiver, to like get out and do things for themselves, and they might need a little extra push from their partner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And once you get in that habit and that dynamic of you each having your own thing and own time, it does get easier. Like we've finally gotten to the point where if my husband, you know, there's just like, he loves to fish, right? And so it's like, hey, can I go fishing on Saturday morning for 4 hours? And I'm like, sure. But when you get home, I'm going to go to brunch and get a pedicure with a girlfriend. And he's like, okay, you know? And so I feel like of recently, you know, we're 5 years into parenthood, but I do feel like we finally gotten that dynamic of, for him, fishing by himself fills his cup. For
Mhm.
me, it's an intense workout or brunch with a girlfriend or a glass of wine with a girlfriend when I'm not pregnant, you know? And like, so we like to do we're very different people. We like to do very different things, but we are very good at honoring like, hey, you're getting a break here. I want to get a break that weekend as well. And then something else we started incorporating, I don't know if you guys have done this, but we've been pretty solid the last 6 months about date nights. We have no family here that can watch our kids. Like, so, I mean, my sister-in-law, she won't change diapers. So maybe 30 minutes we'll get, but like, so we don't have parents here to help us. And so we finally found a sitter, and it's like, hey, this is really important for our marriage to get time away from the kids, even if it's one date night a month. We aim for 2 a month, doesn't always happen, you know, but just even getting that time just alone as a couple. And then of course, time apart. I feel like for us, that was such a game changer for both of our mental health.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like every parent needs time where they can be like considered off,
Yes.
right, of duty, and just being able to go do something for themselves that fills their cup, and then also coming together and tending to that relationship, because like that relationship changes so much when kids come in to the family.
Yeah, absolutely. What other coping skills do you see that work well for parents who have little children?
Coping skills like for like their own mental health or communicating
Mm-hmm.
with partners.
Both. I think they're both so important.
Yeah, I mean, I think an idea for coping with partners is, I've heard like there's kind of a practice of like once a week having like a family meeting, and that can
Mm-hmm.
include having the kids there too. And you sit down and you talk about, what do we have lined up this week? What are my needs this week? You know, what are my wants this week, right? And like, how can we support everyone to get those things met? Um, yeah, because then I think everyone just feels on the same page and they feel heard and seen. I think other coping skills, let's see here. I mean, movement, you mentioned movement with walking. I think again, it's like the Expecting Empowered app. I love like their workouts because it
Me
takes the
too.
decision fatigue out of it, of you don't have to
Mm-hmm.
think about what you're doing. You just turn on their app, they tell you what to do. Um, because yeah, I think exercise and movement is so helpful. Breathing, the cold temperature. Um, I mean, and also you mentioned meditation. I think
Mm-hmm.
meditation can be so beautiful. There's so many apps that like, you know, Insight Timer and the Calm app,
Yes.
that you can just turn it on and you can do it while you're making your coffee, washing the
Mm-hmm.
dishes, nursing, bottle feeding, pumping. Um, yeah, just like sitting with that and letting someone tell you like how to breathe or what to
Mm-hmm.
envision or whatever.
Yeah, I love that. I'm the same way with exercise. It's like you're not going to find me in a gym trying to figure out what to do. I need
Yeah,
to be told what to do. I need the decision fatigue taken away. And I think, yeah, I love I'll link the Expecting and Empowered app below too,
yeah,
because I have a discount code people can get. But their app is so great. And I use Insight Timer for meditations. I use the Peloton app for meditations and strength workouts too, just because they have a lot of people that have been pregnant and postpartum. So right now I'm doing all of the Cali pregnancy workouts on Peloton, and then I'm doing the expecting and empowered pregnancy workouts as well. But just like that decision fatigue is something you said that stands out, because I think sometimes we can get so overwhelmed with, okay, I have 20 minutes. What am I going to do right now? Or even I have 20 minutes, I'm going to work out, but like, where do I lift? What do I start? What do I want to do? And it's like, just find something that's guided to take that away from you, whether it's yoga, meditation, whatever it is, but I think the decision fatigue is so important. And then when it comes to just like signs and symptoms that moms might experience, where you would suggest, hey, like this is a great time to reach out for support, whether it's with a therapist, talking to their doctor about medications. Obviously, I'm a big believer in like there's so many different approaches we can take, and they all kind of go hand in hand. Like if you are struggling, I'm a big believer in sometimes we need medications and therapy and to add in supplements and different nutrition things to help. Like it's really a whole body approach. But what are some signs and symptoms that moms should really be aware of, watch out for in this first, especially year postpartum?
Yeah. I mean, I would say, when we think about like postpartum depression, we think about, maybe the parent's not able to get out of bed. They're not showing interest in their child. Or with anxiety, it's like not being able to be away from their baby, checking them frequently throughout the night to make sure that they're breathing. I think that there's kind of like those stereotypical symptoms. I mean, I would say for myself, in my own postpartum, I had a lot of like panic symptoms. Like I felt very anxious, but I didn't understand why. And it was because I just hadn't tended to my birth and postpartum traumas, and it did develop into PTSD. But I think it's just kind of like that constant like sense of like something bad is going to happen, a dread, feeling very, like jittery, anxious, intrusive thoughts are a big one too. 90% of parents experience intrusive thoughts, which are just very intense thoughts of like things that could happen to your baby. Like a lot of people have thoughts of like, what if I drop my baby down the stairs? Right? Like that's kind of a classic one. But I want to validate that 90% of people have these thoughts, and sometimes it doesn't go beyond that, and other times it does. And so I think that's also kind of a warning sign too, that it's like you don't have to suffer in silence. You can reach out to help, and that's not necessarily medication. It could also just mean therapy. And just getting support from a good therapist trained in perinatal mental health, ideally.
Yeah. And something else with therapy is like, don't be afraid if you reach out and work with a therapist for 1 or 2 sessions and like they are not the person for you. Don't be afraid to test somebody else out, because there are amazing therapists out there. And then there also are therapists out there who are not meant for you and your like the current things that you have going on. And so I think there's a lot of moms out there who are like, oh, I met with a therapist and it didn't go well, and so I gave up. And that was actually my first experience with Ashton. I was struggling with postpartum anxiety and intrusive thoughts, and I went to a therapist who was not great. And I was immediately like, oh, therapy doesn't work, and I've turned it around. I see a therapist now regularly, but I think it can feel really hard in that moment when we do finally reach out for help and support, and it's not necessarily a person who's trained, or they're just not your person, right? It's a very intimate relationship. And so sometimes you're not going to find the right person the very first try, and that's okay. Like you're still worthy of trying to, of finding the right person for you.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I mean, I had been seeing my therapist for, I think, almost a year when I was going through this, but she wasn't trained in perinatal mental health. And so she was very like caring, but she wasn't able to support me in the way that I needed. And so, I mean, honestly, the best thing I could recommend is, if someone's having a hard time, is calling the Postpartum Support International hotline. They have, if you check out their website, they have incredible information, resources, online support groups for a variety of different things. a therapist directory that you can find someone who is certified in perinatal mental health. So you can specifically reach out to those individuals.
Yeah.
But their hotline really saved me. I mean, I didn't know what was happening to me. I was a therapist, right? And I didn't understand what was happening to me. And I called this hotline, and within 24 hours, another mother who had experienced postpartum mental health called me, and just I felt so seen and supported in that time. And she gave me resources to call. I was able to find my perinatal psychiatrist. I was able to find an EMDR therapist. And yeah, I owe Postpartum Support International so much. I highly recommend that hotline to anybody. Yeah. So
Yeah, that's an incredible resource.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just so important to have somebody who really understands what you're going through.
Yeah.
For sure. Cause I don't know if you know the stats of how many moms like struggle, but offhand,
One in five experience a perinatal mental health condition. Yeah.
it's a lot. Yeah.
In five. And it's probably higher, right? Those are just like the recorded numbers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's probably closer to 25% or more if we really broke it down. Yeah. So, well, thank you so. Oh, go ahead.
I just want to say, I think it's actually 1 in 2 for people of color, right?
Oh,
so it's
wow.
like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There's definitely, needs to be support out there for all moms to know, first and foremost, that they're not alone, that they're not broken. There is support, and, there is also like hope in healing too. Yeah. I'm sure you can speak to it now, like being through a lot of it. It's like healing it's not necessarily a fast process, but there is hope that even if you've experienced birth trauma, postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, and you're in the thick of it now, that there is hope that things will continue to improve and when you're seeking support.
Absolutely. I mean, I had my second child a year ago, and my postpartum was just so different. It's just, I think it just goes to show, like, just because you experienced a really hard time the first time, that's not necessarily going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Especially when you know, like, oh, I did struggle the first time. Like, what can I do this time? What things can I put into place? What types of help and support can I put into place this time so that it is a different experience? I think that's really powerful. So instead of like looking back on that experience as it was a really hard experience, looking back on that experience and saying it was hard, and what can I learn from that? And what can I do differently moving forward to get the support I need and not feel bad about needing it, not feel guilty about it.
Yep. Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, can you share how people can find you and connect with you?
Yeah. I mean, they can check me out on Instagram. So I'm at Nurtured and Embodied Mama. And then also wetterowellness.com is also where they can find all of my information and a form that they can contact me with.
Awesome. Thanks so much for hanging out today and sharing your expertise. And I will link all that in the show notes for you guys. And we'll see you again next week.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and listening to the Postpartum Shift podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean the world to me if you could share this episode with a mom friend and leave a written review. This helps the podcast reach and help even more moms. Come say hi over on Instagram at Nutrition for Mamas.